In August of 1942, the United States Patent Office granted patent number 2,292,387. It described a way to keep a radio signal from being jammed by making it hop between frequencies faster than anyone listening could follow. The names on it were George Antheil, a composer, and Hedy Lamarr, a housewife in Los Angeles. The Navy filed it away and did nothing with it for 20 years. And the housewife went back to work the next morning at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, where the studio was calling her the most beautiful woman in the world. Her name was Hedy Lamarr. And the story almost nobody tells is that the face was the least interesting thing about her. She was born Hedwig Kiesler in Vienna in 1914, the only child of a bank director and a concert pianist. Her father used to walk her through the city and explain how things worked. Not in a lecturing way. He would point at a streetcar and take it apart out loud. The motor, the current, the rails. She was 5 years old when she pulled apart a music box on her bedroom floor to see the mechanism and put it back together so it still played. That was the household. Curiosity was normal there. At 16, she talked her way onto a film set in Berlin by forging a note from her mother. By 19, she had made a picture that got her banned in half of Europe and married to an Austrian arms dealer named Fritz Mondel, a man who sold munitions to Mussolini and did not want a wife with a career. He collected her. He took her to dinners with generals and engineers and let her sit there, decorative and silent, while they argued about torpedoes and radio control and why the guidance systems kept failing. She was not decorative and silent. She was listening, and she was keeping it. 4 years in, she left. The version she told for decades had her drugging a maid and escaping in the woman's uniform. And the version historians favor is a quieter one about a dinner in Paris she simply did not come back from. Either way, she got to London with her jewelry and no plan, met Louis B. Mayer in a hotel there, and talked him from a lowball offer into a real contract by booking passage on the same ship to New York and making sure every passenger on board knew who she was by the time they docked. She arrived in Hollywood at 23 with a new last name and a studio that had already decided what she was for. What she was for, as far as MGM was concerned, was standing still and being looked at. She made Algiers, and then Boomtown, and then White Cargo, and the parts got glossier and thinner. The studio put her in exotic costumes and gave her fewer and fewer lines. She once said the hardest thing about the work was that any girl can be glamorous. All you have to do is stand still and look stupid. She said it as a joke. She meant it as a complaint. So she built a room in her house. Not a workshop in a garage, a drafting table set up in the corner of a room with reference books and parts. She worked at it between pictures and at night after shooting. Howard Hughes gave her a pair of his own chemists to play with when he found out, and she redrew the wing shape of one of his aircraft after studying the fastest fish and the fastest birds she could find pictures of. He called her a genius. She invented a tablet that would turn a glass of water into a cola, which she admitted tasted terrible. None of it was a hobby to fill an afternoon. It was the part of her day where her mind was allowed to do what it was built to do. Then in September of 1940, a ship called the City of Benares was torpedoed in the North Atlantic. She had 77 children aboard. 77 children drowned. Lamarr read about it, and the things she had absorbed at all those dinner tables in Austria came back to her at once. The Allies had radio-guided torpedoes. They did not use them because a guidance signal on a single frequency could be found and jammed by the enemy in seconds. And then the weapon was worse than useless. Her idea was that the signal should not stay in one place. If the transmitter and the receiver both jumped between frequencies on the same secret pattern, at the same instant, there would be nothing steady for anyone to find. To an eavesdropper, it would sound like noise. The problem was making two machines miles apart, keep perfect time on a pattern of 88 changes, and the answer came from her neighbor, George Antheil, a composer who had once written a piece for 16-player pianos synchronized by punched paper rolls. 88 frequencies, the number of keys on a piano. They built the pattern on piano rolls. They gave the patent to the Navy for free. Not licensed. Gave. The Navy told her she would be more useful selling war bonds, and she was, spectacularly. She sold $25 million in a single evening. She kissed strangers for donations and stood on stages in city after city, while the paper she had signed sat in a file in Washington. When the patent expired in 1959, it had never been used. She never earned a dollar from it. But the idea did not die in the file. Engineers working on secure military communication in the 60s arrived at frequency hopping, and the patent was there in the record, and the principle spread outward from defense work into the civilian world until it became one of the foundations of how devices talk to each other without wires. Every time a phone finds a network, or headphones find a phone, or a laptop finds a router, something descended from that 1942 patent is doing part of the work. She lived long enough to be told so. In 1997, at 83, she was given the Pioneer Award from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. She did not attend. She had been out of public life for years by then, living quietly in Florida, and her son accepted it for her. What she said when she was told about it was 3 words, in a voice a friend described as flat, with a very old anger finally set down. It's about time. She died in 2000 at 85. Her headstone is in the Vienna woods, and the German-speaking world marks her birthday, the 9th of November, as Inventors' Day. There is a photograph of her from the MGM years that gets used more than any other. Dark hair with a center part, lit from one side, looking just past the camera. For 60 years, the caption under it said the most beautiful woman in the world, and that was the whole story anyone was given. The rest of it was sitting in a patent file the entire time, with her married name on it, waiting. If this one got you, stay with me for the next one. There was a man in the most famous comedy act in the world who walked away from it at 33 because he was tired of playing the brother nobody laughed at. He opened a machine shop. 13 years later, the clamps his company built were holding the atomic bomb inside the plane on the way to Nagasaki. That is the next story, and almost nobody has heard it.